you're a former Wall Streeter, and what we've seen now with crypto coming in is we've seen this weird kind of a dichotomy of crypto adoption, and a lot of the public doesn't understand it either. And it goes like this. If you're on Wall Street and you're one of the banks or investment banks, and your customer is saying, give me some of that Bitcoin exposure, give me the Bitcoin ETF, give me some of the Ethereum exposure, give me the Algorand exposure, most people would say, well, the bankers would look at this and say, this ultimately puts me out of business potentially. This ultimately maybe stops my business model, or maybe stops to mess with the permanent distortion you're talking about in the long run. And so you would think they would resist it, but we also know as bankers, especially the jobs that you and I had, is that if the customer doesn't get it from you, they'll get it from the next guy down the street. And they'll get to sell it to them because they're shameless. And so you want to actually deliver it to them so you can make the margins, even though in the long run that might hurt your business. And maybe this is like Walmart adopting an Amazon strategy because they know sooner or later. So, and then on top of that, you've got the central banks who are ultimately, the bankers are appointed by politicians. And I had someone in here recently that said the next elected president is probably going to be on a crypto-friendly platform. And we're seeing that people know the populist vote right now. By sticking crypto on your ticket, you're probably going to get more votes. So what do you make of all these seemingly, not conflicts of interest, but dichotomies happening?
No, it's really interesting the way you put that, because you're right. Wall Street, as we know, I guess goes back to the idea of money being a virus. Like, a virus doesn't necessarily want to hang out and wait for a host, right? It's just like, you're here, boom. If I can get there, I'll get there, and that's exactly the mentality of Wall Street. And like you said, if you're not going to get it from me, you're going to get it from someone else. And if there's money to be made, I'm going to trade both sides of that. I don't care. And if my customers want crypto, that's great. If my customers want to sell it to me, I'll just like offload the other side through some trading transaction, and I'll just make on the negative.
You'll find a way.
I'll find a way.
Right.
And I'll do it now, because I don't really care what's going to happen in the general limit of crypto or anything. What I care about right now, as you know, is what I'm going to make this quarter and what I'm going to make in my bonus this year. I do not literally care about competing beyond that until it's next year. I just don't care. And so that's one side of it. There's an immediacy. If people want it, if I can make money out of it, I'm going to find a way to do that. I'm going to not wait. Because if I'm the bank that waits, or if I'm the fund that waits, I lose, right? And so that's what's happening anyway. And from the standpoint of politics, there's a populist aspect towards Bitcoin, because it's the idea of being sort of outside of government or outside of central banks, and having just a way of transacting in its limit without that sort of connection. And so if you're running on that platform, it's very positive. The current mayor of New York ran basically, and various mayors throughout Florida, they've run on pro sort of crypto messages, or of saying, move the mining of Bitcoin, move the energy expense of Bitcoin into our areas, and we'll sort of work this out, because this is where we want to be on that side of it. And they tend to be younger, and they tend to sort of promote that message. And so I can see that continuing. And again, we are dealing with an issue where there has been a significant depreciation of Bitcoin, throughout, since the end of last year throughout today, and it's valid to be concerned about that. It's valid from a business owner perspective to be like, well, I can't really transact in Bitcoin right now because it's not stable enough. So I do understand that side of it too. And the more Bitcoin is used, the more stability it can create. But again, that goes back to what I was saying before. There's this sort of tension. There's this fight that's going on between the money that's kind of we're used to, and the money that might be tomorrow's money. And I just think we're not done with that fight yet.
And are central banks worried that their fiat currency is going to be replaced by a cryptocurrency?
No, I don't think they are. I mean, I know this gets said a lot. I mean, here's the thing. I think they're concerned enough to create it. Right, so there's a fear, and there was a real fear, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're sort of happier now that there has been this devaluation in cryptocurrency over the last year, and it's devalued by more than a lot of other parts of the stock market have fallen in this period of rising rates, of basically exerting that power to do that from the standpoint of the central banks. So I do think that there is a concern there, but the reality of the math is that the amount of transactions, and I mean large transactions, not just investment, in Bitcoin and crypto has to be so much more than it is right now, that just from the sheer math of it, there is that concern, which is why CBDCs are being examined and why Bitcoin and crypto is being sort of, cast aside from the philosophy of people that run these institutions, that run central banks. But the math of it is that this transformation is going to take a very long time. And so if you're Jerome Powell and you're worried about, pretending to fight inflation and being all sort of, hero inflation about it, you might be concerned about, sort of more people using Bitcoin than before, if that happens to be the case, over when you're still actually in that post in the central bank. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be probably alive when and if that transition actually happens.
Yeah, it's 10, 20 years out, really.
At least.
Maybe more. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a tiny, small part of the market. It's 1% of global equities right now.
And that's just the reality. I mean, there can be a hope, there can be an acceleration in growth and use and everything else, which is mitigated when there are these periods of volatility and there is sort of depreciation along the way. But just the numbers suggest that this is still a long way off. Stable coins,
are they concerned about those?
Because, well, they were recently.
Yeah.
They're not as concerned as much because of the sheer premise of stablecoin being connected to actual currency. So they're sort of more in something that they sort of understand that they can actually still control because they're controlling the underlying currency, than something that's unmoored to a currency.
The greedy bankers are about to do it again. In 2008, they crashed our financial system and nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. Then they received trillions of dollars in government bailouts. And after, they demanded fat bonuses paid for by you, the taxpayer.
It turns out the banks haven't just been screwing the American taxpayers, they're also screwing over their investors. Turns out the banking industry is the worst place you could put your money, despite enormous taxpayer bailouts.
Now the bankers are back to take away your financial freedom. They lie and tell you that cryptocurrency isn't safe. They try to make it illegal for you to choose how to invest your hard-earned money. They lie and say cryptocurrency is used by money launderers and criminals. But look at the record. It's the banks themselves that launder hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the biggest criminal operations in the world.
Leaked documents have revealed how some UK banks have helped criminals, money launderers and Russians under sanctions.
American authorities discovered that the Sinaloa cartel moved $881 million through HSBC accounts as bank officials turned a blind eye to the illegality.
The bankers lie and say cryptocurrency is not a real investment. Meanwhile, the smartest CEOs in the world are buying billions and billions of it. The truth is that banks lie about cryptocurrency because it makes them scared. The banks take $9 trillion per year of your hard-earned money, and they are worried that they will finally be exposed. They're scared because crypto means they can no longer control your money, which means they can no longer control you. They are scared because you might actually understand your money and intelligently decide what to do with it. Now is the time for us to come together, fight back, and take control. It's time to educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because financial education means financial freedom. We know that cryptocurrencies will help us build the new decentralized financial system of the future. A banking system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A banking system where access to finance is a fundamental human right. A banking system that is free and fair and welcomes all humans on this earth. The DeFi revolution is happening. We, the people, can no longer be fooled. We choose to take control of our finances. We choose to take control of our freedom. We choose to take control of our future. Join us, and let's take back our financial freedom forever.